Hello, Edward here from Zero88. In this session we're going to be talking about how you can connect your lighting console running ZerOS to capture visualization software. So I'm currently running Phantom ZerOS on my laptop. Phantom ZerOS allows you to emulate any console running the ZerOS operating system. So at the moment I'm emulating a Flex console here. I'm emulating a Flex console, that's what we can see there. And on the left hand side of my screen, that's representing what I would see on my external monitor of my Flex console. So as everything we do here, it will apply to if you're using Phantom ZerOS on PC, like I am here, or indeed if you're actually using your real physical console. Top right of the screen, we then have Capture visualization software. So Capture, based in Capture Sweden, they are a company that makes the visualization software that we're using here. Now Capture have got a series of demo files that you can download from our website, and that's what I'm running here. So available on our website is a link to download this, and as well as a link to download this demo file, which is free of charge, there is also a link to download the show file that you can load into your console. So the first thing you need to do to use Capture is you need to essentially patch your lighting console exactly as you would if this was a real rig of fixtures. So you need to make sure that whatever addresses are configured on your virtual lights, we need to make sure that they match in our console. So it is emulating exactly real life. We need to make sure that our fixtures here in our capture file are addressed and they match our patch that we've got configured in ZerOS. So the demo visualization file that we can see here, the show file that allows me to control this, as I said, is also available to download from our website. And so that means you can run Phantom ZerOS. You can load in your show file that allows you to communicate it, run this software on the same laptop, and you'll be able to get the two talking. How do we get the two talking? Well, we'll talk about that in a bit. So what we're running here, as I've mentioned, it's a demo version of the capture visualization software. So it's a nice free demo version, and that means that it's got a predefined set of lights. It's got a predefined rig, predefined set of lights. But if you go and purchase the full version of Capture, that will allow you to create whatever virtual venue you need, basically. So you can drag in your own lights, you can go and configure that how you need to. Go check out all of the really great Capture training videos to find out more about Capture. So I'm going to mainly be focused on the demo file here. I'm by no means giving a training session on how to use Capture. I'm not the right person for that. But I am going to we're going to work through in this session, spend a bit of time and talk about how we can use these, particularly these demo files for so that you can practice along at home, really useful for training and things like that. But of course, maybe it might help you decide, actually, yeah, the option to create my own venue in Capture and connect it to my console is something that I might want to do. So, first of all, some really useful shortcuts that I like to use in the Capture demo file here. So I'm running the Dockhouse file. So the Dockhouse project is the project I'm running here, and that's just what Capture have called it. And as I mentioned, there is then a matching Dockhouse file, but for the ZerOS consoles in our ZerOS show file format. A couple of shortcuts I like to use in Capture. One of which is Control X. That will take you to this view here. So this allows you to actually see your rig without any, not in live mode. So it allows you to see the rig with all of the fixtures patched in and see your virtual stage. Control W, that is a wireframe view. Control E is a plot view. So that's what you would go and use if you wanted to create some plots and paperwork for the file. And then Control R will take us back to live, so we can actually see what our fixtures are doing based on the data they're receiving from your console. If you want to, you can do a Control I. That allows you to save the current image, so that's quite nice. You can set up a lighting state on your console. When you've got it how you like, you could always save that if you want to. And then, always a good one, if you do a Control 2, that takes you back to front, and it will snap you back to the front camera angle. As I said, by no means am I going to go in depth into the capture, or in the kind of nitty gritty on how capture works. I'm just giving you kind of a big overview of how you can get started. So as I mentioned, just like real life really, although we've got a virtual venue here, you need to make sure that the patch in your console matches the patch of your fixtures. And if you're in the full version of capture, you can go in and you can see the breakdown of what fixtures are on what addresses. Now, this leads us on, of course, when we've got that, okay, well, now we're going to then be able to control our fixtures. So how can we get ZerOS and capture talking? Well, to do that, we can go into our the settings on our console. Again, if you're on this applies for if you're on Phantom or on the real console. We can go into Setup. The keyboard shortcut to go into Setup if you're on Phantom is the Insert button on your laptop. And we can then go to Universes. In Universes, this is where you can essentially route your lighting data from your console to whatever you're trying to control, basically. So this is where your DMX option lives. Of course, if you're using your physical console with your physical pair of DMX outputs on the back, that's where you can configure those. But then we also have Streaming ACN, ArtNet4 and CITP. Now these are three methods of sending DMX lighting data over Ethernet or over the network. And so I can choose to use any of these protocols. So Streaming ACN, ArtNet4, you can use those, send your DMX over Ethernet. I am using CITP, the CITP protocol, and you can see there it brackets capture. It's designed primarily for use with capture visualization software. And the nice thing about CITP is it isn't just DMX over Ethernet. It's also going to be having a two-way communication with capture to keep your capture file and your console in sync. And we'll explore what ways it's doing that shortly. So if you're on Phantom, how do we get the two software packages talking? Well, we can go and configure our network settings. And what you'll probably see in here is something very similar to me. A 127.0.0.1 address or a 192.168.0.10 or something similar. You'll see something similar. It will be different. It will likely be different to what I see here though. And this is your network settings, and you need to make sure that your network settings are within range of your capture project. So what does the 127.0.0.1 do? Well, that allows Phantom and capture to talk on the same PC. So that means that will be using what's called the loopback network address of your laptop, and it will be talking to capture directly internally. Now, in my case here, I've actually just got it set to 192.168.0.10, which is currently the Wi-Fi IP address of my laptop. And therefore capture is we've got the two systems linked, and capture is communicating on that IP address. On your console, you will see far more flexibility in these options. These are just going to be showing me the available IP addresses of my laptop in Phantom. But on your console, you'll have the option for DHCP, or you'll have the option to enter a static manual IP address. We'll talk about those a little bit later. So I'm going to come out of setup, and I'm going to take my lighting state down that I had running. Now I mentioned I'm using CITP, so it's not just my DMX over Ethernet, it is other stuff as well. And one of those first things that it will allow me to do is send fixture selection. And if you've seen some of the other sessions, you will have seen this happening anyway by default. If I select a light on my console, that light is also selected in Capture. That's because of the CITP communication that's working. So that's really useful because it can show me what lights I'm selecting on my console, and it will show me that in my visualizer. If you're using just streaming ACN or ArtNet, as I keep mentioning, that is just DMX over Ethernet, so you won't get that selection information being displayed. It'll still work, you'll still be able to control your lights, you just won't get that selection information, which is very helpful. And it is a two-way communication. So that means that I could go and click on a fixture in Capture, and it would select it on my console, which is really helpful. If I double tap clear on my console, it will clear the selection in Capture. If I go to my view here, which was Control X, I can click on a whole lighting bar, and that will select that whole bar of lights in ZerOS. So you can see here how this can start to become really intuitive. If you've got a capture file set up of your kind of standard rig, you could have that on a laptop right next to your console, and you know, if it's a touchscreen laptop, then happy days, because you could literally go and click on, physically tap on a light in your capture file, and it will select it on your console for you. Really useful, really intuitive. You don't really need to worry about what fixture number it is. You can just go, I want that light there, and it will select for you. So that's a really useful tool to be aware of. On ZerOS, if you tap clear once, that will clear your selection. You might be familiar with that one already. In Capture, you can do a Control D, and that will clear the selection. Both systems are talking to each other, as you can see. Another really useful shortcut in Capture to be aware of is a Control-Shift-T. If you do that, it will select all of the currently selected fixture type. So if I select a fixture, Control-Shift-T, it will select all fixtures of that type for me. And of course, as soon as I've done that, as I can see if I go back to live, which was Control-R, I can now dive in and I can start to control those lights. So that's really useful to be aware of. So that is CITP fixture selection. Now, you might be noticed, the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed, that I'm getting external fixture select written in my command line. So as you're using Capture to select lights, we're obviously seeing them reflected in the console, and that information is being displayed in our command line. Why that's really useful is you can use your backspace button, because you can use your back arrow on the console to undo the selections that you might have done in Capture. So there will be a history, if you like, of your selection changes you may have made. If you tap the clear key once on ZerOS, that will clear that history. It will clear your command line. So as well as selection, something else we can do as well is something called external level set. That's what we call it. So that means we can use the fixture controls in Capture to start to control our console. So I'm going to just go in and I'm going to say 49 through 58, and I'm going to home those fixtures. I'm then going to go to my palettes desktop, go to my picker, go to my pan and tilt grid. Now in Capture, I'm going to tap the little power icon, and that gives me my fixture controls on screen. I'm going to make those a little bit bigger. So now I can start to move these fixtures around in Capture, and you can see the relevant fixture controls are changing in ZerOS. Equally, if I change the fixture's colour, you can see how that is also changing in ZerOS. The colours are the two software packages that are talking to each other. And you can see that in action. So that's really useful because it means if you wish to, you might want to go in and use the capture fixture tools. You might be working in capture. You might get those fixtures in a zoom, in a position, in a colour you really like. You can then tap record on your console, and I could go ahead and record that into a queue. And so now, using the fixture tools in capture, I was then able to record that as a queue straight into my console, and I can then recall that if I wish to. Now, another thing that's really useful within capture is the ability to focus your moving lights with a right click. I'm going to go to my groups. I'm going to double click on my washes, which will turn those on to full. And what I can now do in capture, and I'm just going to go to my pan and tilt grid so you can see what's happening, I can now right click in capture. And my lights will go to that point on stage. And you can see those values being shown in ZerOS. So I could go and right click on my drummer there, fine tune that a tad, and when I'm happy, I can now tap record in ZerOS, and I could store that as my own custom palette. I don't need to go through, select each light, pan and tilt it individually. I can literally just right click where I need it in my virtual venue and record myself a palette. And I can now go straight from those fixtures being homed straight to my drummer position. I might want to repeat that to backlight my performer. Record that as my next palette. And I can really quickly record these palettes just by recording the positions that I can configure in capture. And because the two systems are linked and talking happily to each other, I can then tap record and store that as my own custom palette. And of course I can then, if I wanted to, I could then disconnect from capture, close capture down, I wouldn't necessarily need it anymore, and I've then got these palettes that I can use to program my cues for my show when I actually go and plug into my real venue, for example. In capture, if you go to Window and Universes, that will open the Universes window for you. And if I click on a universe, so Universe A or Universe 1 if you like, this will show me the patch of my lights and the DMX footprint. And it will also show me the levels that that are currently being received by capture. And as you can see here, it's worth clarifying, when I opened the dockhouse file, I did not need to configure it to receive data from ZerOS. All I needed to do is just make sure that my CITP network settings in ZerOS were within range of capture, and the two then automatically linked. If you find they don't, just go in here to the external universe and make sure that you're connected to the correct universe for your ZerOS console. Now, as you can see here, on ZerOS consoles you can patch onto 64 universes. So that's why we're seeing all 64 of those in my drop down. But for now, I've only got 8 in use here, and they're numbered 1 to 8. Happy days, nice and simple on that one. If you do need to configure network settings in capture, you can go more, you can go to connectivity options, and in here you can go and configure, for example, CITP. You shouldn't need to though, that's the fundamental thing. It should just link. That's certainly what has happened for me in my case here. I've opened Phantom, I've opened the dockhouse file, the two have linked. I haven't need to configure anything manually. So you should find the same. I'm going to go and close the universes window now in the capture file. Now, if you're connecting your console rather than your Phantom software, If you're connecting your physical console to a particular laptop or PC that might be running Capture, two ways of doing that. You could do that directly over Ethernet. So you could literally have a single bit of Ethernet going from your console to your laptop running Capture, or PC or whatever other device you might have running Capture. Single bit of Ethernet cable linking the two. If you do that, you're going to need to set a static IP address. So within your console's network settings, so exactly like I can see on Phantom here, under IP address you would have the option for static IP address, and you could go and configure an IP address that is within range of your laptop running Capture. Now on the laptop running Capture, that will also need to have a static IP address. By default, laptops will always, as a general rule, default to DHCP. That's not going to work if you've got the two linked directly. So you would just need to go into your laptop's network settings and set that to be a static IP within range of your console. Now, if you're not sure what within range means, go check out our networking training sessions. And go and check out the networking section of the ZerOS manual. That will explain what we mean by on the same subnet or in range or that kind of terminology. But when they are on the same subnet and in range, your console and your laptop will be able to talk just with that single network cable. Another way of doing it though is part of a larger network. So you could just have your console and your laptop as part of a larger network, your larger maybe show network. And if your show network has got a DHCP server on it, so something like a standard wireless router, that would do the job, that will be able to assign your laptop an IP address and network settings, and it will be able to assign your console network settings. So on your console, you could just go and set your CITP IP address to be configured to DHCP. And the two should be up and running. So kind of the simplest version of that would be console connected to a wireless router. That then gives you the benefits of using the remote apps with your console as well. And then you could have your laptop connected to. You could have that connected over Wi-Fi. But for a more stable link, you could have that over Ethernet as well. So you would just have your laptop and your console both connected to your wireless router that you can then use for remote app communication. Both of those can be, kind of those three devices can then be connected together over Ethernet. So I hope that's been useful. It's a brief introduction there to exploring ZerOS and Capture. And as I've said, in most cases, it should just play together happily, and they should link automatically. If you are having difficulty, it's good to know that you've got some options. What we can do on the console side is tap your Z key. Now I'm currently emulating my internal touchscreen on the console. If you tap your Z key, you'll be able to go to System Information. If you go check out your network overview, that will show you your network status, and I can see that my Capture protocol is enabled and it's on this IP. If I go to System Text, that will also be able to show me if it can see Capture and it's connected. So in this case here, I can see Capture Visualizer at that. That's just the name of my PC, and I can then see my PC's IP address. Okay, if they lose connection, so prior to joining this session, I opened Capture and I closed it again. You can see there, it found it and then it lost connection because Capture was closed. But then when I reopened it, it found and connected again. So there'll just be a little bit of useful information in System Text. If you're having difficulty getting the two connected, you can look in here and you can go, well, the console can see Capture, so the console thinks everything's okay. So then you might want to look at your PC at the settings on there if you're having difficulty. So I hope that's been useful as a bit of a brief introduction to connecting ZerOS and Capture. Some of the useful shortcuts, we've looked at those in Capture. And we've also looked at the fact that we've got selection information being sent between the two, and also really useful external levels as well. DMX levels, there's a two-way communication happening, which means you can use the fixture controls in Capture and store them into your queues and palettes in ZerOS. Do go ahead and go to our website where you'll be able to go and download the show file that you can use, and also the demo capture files that you can use on your computer. And you can get the two linking together. Something I'd also recommend personally, because I do enjoy playing with it, you can get Capture for iPad, which is quite nice. So you can actually have your Capture visualizer on your iPad if you wish to. Just worth mentioning, I will mention it. ZerOS, because it can output streaming ACN and ArtNet, it can communicate with other visualization packages as well. So that's just worth clarifying. It's not just Capture that we can communicate with. But as we can see, the benefit of Capture is we've got CITP. And so it means we've got the benefit of the two-way communication happening. If you've got any questions or suggestions, do drop us an email as always to support@zero88.com. Take care.